Hello everybody, my name is Bakusa and today I'm going to be uploading a video that is going to be showcasing how to start a factory. So I'm going to be doing a couple of things here. I'm going to be changing exactly two settings. I'm going to be, when I'm making this world, I'm going to be changing cliffs to turn them off because I hate them and they are disgusting, in my personal opinion. You can play with cliffs if you want, but I will be turning them off for this playthrough. The second setting that I'll be changing is the bias, and I'm going to be changing the bias to increase it, basically making it more likely that I get green versus this nasty desert stuff. There's not necessarily a huge glaring difference between these two biomes. The difference really boils down to, of course there's a few others, but the difference really boils down to the amount of trees, which is higher in the green biomes, so they eat up a little bit more pollution, but in the deserts you get access to bigger rocks, which are just more useful in the earlier game, but you also don't have to chop down trees to clear up land, so there's a couple of pluses and a couple of minuses. I just prefer the greenery because, well, I don't want to look at this, I don't know, just nasty yellow gray paste the entire time, so we're going to be changing it to the green side of the bias, and we're going to be starting our world like this. So without further ado, let's start building our first factory together. So one of the first things we did, of course, is we wanted to clean up our little area, so we got rid of our crashed down ship, and now we're going to go find ourselves some rocks. We don't have the huge rocks that drop coal because we don't have any desert around us, but we do have these big rocks that'll give us a little bit of starting stone. And whenever we were finished gathering some stone, we crafted some furnaces and we moved on to some gentle deforestation right before setting up our very first mining drill and a few furnaces to go along for the new ones whenever we make them here shortly. We're using the wood as fuel for now because the coal is just a little too far away for me to want to walk to right now. And I decided I would go ahead and mine a little bit of iron here while I'm standing around. And I did want to mention a couple of things about this playthrough specifically that you guys will be seeing as I go through, and a couple of goals that I have. So this is going to be a 3-part playthrough. The first video you guys are going to get, I'm going to be building a factory up to red and green science. The next video you're going to get blue and purple science, and the next video after that you're going to get yellow science and the launching of the rocket. Of course, there's a lot of different things that have to happen in between here and there, but I will also be completing this playthrough in under 8 hours. Of course, I will actually be having a timer on screen for you guys. I have this timer on screen because I want you guys to know just how long this playthrough is taking, and so you can actually see how long it's taking me to do certain things. And from here on in the video, I will be having the timer on screen in the bottom right corner indefinitely. Nice and out of the way, so you guys can see it if you want to see it and pay attention to it, or don't. It's up to you. But either way, I'm going to continue with building the factory now. So a large portion of the next a few minutes or so is basically in the beginning of the factory in general, the early game of Factorio is basically what it boils down to, is you make furnaces, you make mining drills, you gather coal, and you just smelt ores for a while. And I pretty much just ran back and forth doing this for a bit, prioritizing coal because we need coal so we can actually put the miners pointing into each other so they can fuel them up, and you just run down there and collect all of the coal as needed. And after a little while of doing this, I decided it was finally time to start actually moving beyond this burner mining drill stage of the game and start actually trying to progress. After significantly increasing our resource production capacity, I went ahead and moved down to the coal, and I put a couple of burner inserters and I just moved them onto this belt, and I ran this belt up to where I was going to start building my electricity portion of this starting area. I kept my crafting queue pretty full. I mean, you can see there I had some red science in my inventory, and you should be kind of keeping your crafting queue a little bit busy, especially in the early game, just to kind of speed some things along if you really want to keep things moving quickly. And of course, we ended up starting to set up electricity, and whenever I set these up, I ended up having them almost side by side, except this second row, there was at least one space between the engines, every other engine, so that you can put a pipe there so that you can actually save yourself some horizontal room. It's not necessary that you do this, but it definitely helps. This is more or less just so that you can run the power lines in the middle instead of running them on the outsides, which isn't super relevant. You can really do this however you want. It's not super important. Pretty much as soon as we ended up getting ourselves electricity, I went ahead and placed down a singular lab and put some red science in there just to research automation, and once that had completed, I started building a little, I guess, module you could say, where I was just kind of manually feeding it materials and having it make things like gear wheels and transport belt and stuff like that for me. And my next objective was I wanted to go ahead and automate the, I guess more specifically, I wanted to thoroughly secure my power production. So I went ahead and ran down electric wires to the coal production and refilled it with electric mining drills so that I can make sure that I still have power going consistently and it won't just like run out because it doesn't have coal in it or something. And after that, I went ahead and started the process of basically transitioning over from just having mining drills pushed into furnaces to actually having mining drills onto a belt, and then running the belt and then moving the stuff into furnaces from there so I could actually make the first bus. So I'll have it on screen here. So basically what we did was we put a bunch of electric mining drills which do mine twice as fast, and we put them on this belt and we ran them to basically this long line of furnaces which we just effectively put power through and filled it up with electric inserters. This is going to be a pretty common module you're going to see a lot, especially in like this first 8 hours of gameplay, or at least until I complete the game. This is going to be very common to see because I'm not going to bother like going super crazy to do much else. So effectively, we took the completed ores out of them with an inserter as well and put them onto this belt, which we're going to be running somewhere else in the factory as well. But while we were at it, we went ahead and did the exact same thing for copper. And this did take a little while because it does take some time to craft these things, which is one of the reasons why we built that module earlier to help me craft some of the intermediates and also the transport belt that I needed to actually do the project. And now that we have our coal giving us power consistently, we have our copper going all the way, we have our iron going all the way, we can research logistics and we can finally start working on our very first actual bus, quote unquote. So bus basically just refers to the Factorio player lining up all their materials in one spot so you can move them around as needed and use them as needed. It's just a way of organizing things. And you can see here in the background what we basically use this bus for is we can use splitters and underground belts, and you'll see me do this a lot to effectively move resources where we need them to go. And to kind of work towards that goal in the video, the first thing I actually decided to automate was red science. And you can see here I lined up some I grabbed the iron, I moved it off with a splitter, and I ran the copper underneath it so that we can keep going straight in a line if needed. That's kind of important for a bus, is to be able to keep the resources moving in one direction and just kind of drag them off onto the side when we need them. That's kind of what this is for, and you can see it here. So I've started the production process for making red science, and that was pretty easy. All it takes was a gear wheel and some copper, and with this bus firmly established, this should be a much easier process now. I went ahead and threw some labs at the end of this red science circuit that I have here, and I went ahead and started researching the green science pack so that I could actually start working on that process. And so to make green science packs, we need to make inserters and we need to make transport belts. Especially for these more early on things, green science doesn't actually take that much like resource to make per green science. So you don't actually need to go massive scale with this. Typically 2 things making transport belts and 2 things making inserters is usually enough to take care of the green science, at least for the foreseeable future until we complete the game. So I didn't really go overboard on this, and whenever I don't need large scale like that, I typically just feed the assembling machines into each other. So oftentimes for circuits like this, you may see me putting copper plates into a thing to make wires and put the wires directly into something that would make, say, green circuits. And that's something that I do a lot, especially whenever it comes to making transport belt, which we saw earlier, that I basically line them up where I put gear wheels basically being put directly into a transport belt and using the red longhand inserters to move them out over so we could actually get the transport belt where we need them to be. So transport belt's a pretty easy one. Inserter is a little bit more involved because you need a bunch of different stuff, and one of your belts is going to need to be a hybrid belt. And for this scenario, I chose my hybrid belt here to be plates and gear wheels. And on the other side of the factory, I ended up making the green circuits needed, as I spoke about earlier, kind of like with the things feeding into each other with the wire. And I used underground belts to move them over to the other side of the factory. So now I can actually make the inserters that I need to make, which means we have all the things that we need to make our green science. So before I start the whole process of wanting to close out the video here in just a bit, because like I said, we have all the things we need to create our green science, which was the main goal for this video. We did this at roughly 50 minutes into the playtime. So 50 minutes into playtime making our first green science is pretty good. I'm rather happy with that. So one of the first things that I'm going to be doing in the next video is I'm going to be starting with energy distribution 2 and showing you guys a really neat little trick with that. But before we ended up closing out of the gameplay portion of this, some of the things that I did end up doing before, because I wanted to get to an hour of game time just because I wanted to keep playing, because I was having a lot of fun playing. I enjoy making new factories. So some of the stuff that we did after we got our green science and started doing some research is I increased the iron production, because I noticed that my furnaces weren't actually like fully producing at their maximum capacity. I also noticed that I was running a little bit low on power, so I went ahead and added some upgrades to the power grid, and finally I did fully build out a starter setup for my steel production, which we will be using at the start of the next video for energy distribution 2 reasonings. We'll have some pretty fun stuff to do with that. I love energy distribution 2. It's one of the best, or actually it's energy distribution 1 technically, but it's the second level of poles that you get, so I always call it ED2. So it's a really powerful technology. It's going to help us a lot, and we're going to be doing all kinds of neat stuff with it. So if you enjoyed this video and you're excited to see the next one, consider subscribing if you haven't already, because I don't have a timeline on when I post these things, so you might as well subscribe so you get the notification as to when it happens. Another thing, this video was really fun for me to make because I did kind of skirt the line between playthrough and tutorial, which I'm a huge fan of. I thought it was really fun. I poured a lot of work into making this video, so if you liked it, consider leaving a like on this video. So I'm pretty much closing out this video here. I will have, of course, stuff going on in the background, some of the upgrades that I've been doing to the factory, and some other stuff. But kind of just to go on a little ramble here, because I've been really enjoying the comments I've been seeing you guys have been leaving on my tutorials, especially if you got this far. If you've seen my other tutorials that I've made on this game, I love seeing comments that you guys leave, like this helped me a lot, or this got me back into the game. I love seeing that stuff. I'm so happy you guys are getting back into the game if you are, and I'm really happy you guys are learning new mechanics for this game as well, because this game is awesome. This game is also really complicated, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make a true playthrough to assist people in building their factory for the first time, because I've seen people stand around just staring at their factory for hours on end and almost doing nothing. So I wanted to kind of make something to maybe help people through that should they desire that assistance. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on how to start a factory in Factorio. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be doing blue and purple science and all the things in between. I'll see you then.